Rocksteady has proven with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League that they have absolutely no idea what their fans actually want from games, and now we're finding out that the next DLC character to be added is not Mr. Freeze like we expected, but Mrs. Freeze. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, this game from the very beginning was a nightmare, and even in the base game, there was extremely questionable content, like the sheer disrespect for the Justice League members, and of course, character decisions from designs like Harley's awful design, and then them, of course, making Ivy a young Greta Thunberg. But now we are finding out that the Mr. Freeze that has been teased since the game actually launched is not actually going to be Mr. Freeze, but Mrs. Freeze. This is the image that is circulating the internet. There are several posts online about it, but as you can see, this is the just awful design that they decided to go with. Completely flat-chested, absolutely no feminine curves whatsoever, no skin showing except for the skin on her face, and then she's just got the classic Karen cut, and oh god, she just looks like a disaster compared especially to models like this. Now, I know the Kill the Justice League game is technically set in the Arkhamverse, so it's only fair to compare to other female designs in the series, but in my heart and my soul, and I know so many other people feel the same way, this is not an Arkhamverse title. The Arkhamverse is one of the best quadrilogies of games ever created between Origins, Night, Asylum, and City, and to see the sheer disrespect for fans of the franchise and Rocksteady decide to put this out, it just makes me never want to support them ever again monetarily. And this is not the only bad decision that's been made with this game, but I mean, it looks awful. And yes, keep in mind, the game does feature seasons themed around different DC characters incorporating alternate realities invaded by Brainiac known as Elseworlds, but at the same time, they could have done this in a way that did not feel like a slap in the face to players. They could have given her a really unique outfit, a haircut, overall just a good design. I mean, look at Mrs. Freeze, again, compared to other Arkhamverse games and characters. I mean, Harley, we know, has been absolutely butchered. She looks nothing like her other Arkhamverse counterparts, as you can see. I mean, she is a bombshell in the other games. Beautiful. And she had multiple different costumes. They could have picked any of them and people would have been happy. And then, of course, we have the one, the only, my love, Catwoman. This Catwoman design is truly just hands down a perfect female design. She shows her curves, but she's also almost fully covered except for the little bit of cleavage that she's showing. This is what game developers should be creating. This is the design that they should go with. If they want a character in a full bodysuit, you can still make her look really feminine and sexy, and then you have this monstrosity and the Greta Thunberg Ivy, and of course the Karen Harley. It just looks awful. This entire game, though, looks terrible. And again, even though they were initially teasing Mr. Freeze, now we're getting a Mrs. Freeze, and it does make sense because it is an alternate version of the character. It's not the one that was supposed to be in the Arkhamverse previously. It still is definitely lackluster, and people are roasting them, saying things like, what in the world is that? They hate women, and attractive women in particular. It is so true. They don't want to see attractive females anymore. They want to hide them away because of what they call the male gaze, even though that's a fictional concept. People are saying things like, are there actually any people that worked on the Arkham games on this dev team? Thank God for Helldivers and Japanese devs. I mean, yeah, there are plenty of other better games to play, and we don't know how many people worked on this game, that actually worked on the previous Arkham games, they were initially boasting about how they were trying to stay close to their roots, and they did have some people, but none of the larger roles, like, of course, the creative leads or the writers were ever part of the Arkhamverse, and it really shows. And then, of course, you have to take into consideration this is a Sweet Baby Inc. game, so Sweet Baby Inc. helped with the writing and the storytelling. Of course, they also had consulted on character design. So this really does scream Sweet Baby Inc. And I mean, they helped with the game, so it's not a shocker that the characters in this game are just ugly. What the hell is that? Anything hot or sexy equals huge. No. All the 10 people playing Suicide Squad are super psyched though, and I just recently had to talk about these outfits that just look terrible. They're clearly supposed to be plays on the Titan Joker from the other Arkhamverse games, but they just do not look good. I mean, they really did decide, you know what, we're just gonna throw these characters in pants. We maybe put a harness on one of them, a tank top on another, splatter this green paint, and the players will love it. They just look very lazy. They just look very uninspired. They just don't look like good designs. And I mean, you could have tried a little bit harder for the few people that have actually supported you this whole time. As you can see, the game's actually sitting at 516 players right now. That's absolutely crazy. I don't think the game's seen this high of a player number in months, to be honest. And it, of course, had only ever peaked at 13,459 players, which is just not a good number. And, yeah, I mean, they lost so much money on this game. It's really no surprise to see why they're so lazy, why they're not putting in the work and effort. This is what happens when you work with a Sweet Baby Inc. Woke games do not sell. People will take one look at a Mrs. Freeze, one look at the Ivy, one look at the Harley, and turn tail and not monetarily support you. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League failure resulted in a $200 million loss in revenue to Warner Brothers, which just does not sound like we will ever get another game from them in the Arkhamverse, which honestly is kind of sad, right? Because even though I hated this game and it was a nightmare, I still have loved the Arkhamverse, and I'd still love to see them do something with it. I just don't want them to continue down the wrong path, right? I don't want them to make another Suicide Squad. I don't want them to keep making these mistakes. I don't want them to put out another crappy game. And I know we're getting that, like, Arkham VR game, but we know that that's really not going to be comparable to the main Arkhamverse titles. It might have, like, a little bit of lore, a little bit of story, but we're keeping our expectations extremely low. Plus, we also haven't seen any gameplay. We only saw cinematic trailers, so in the back of my mind, that game really doesn't even exist right now. But it's just pathetic to see what they've done with these characters. They could have brought in Mr. Freeze. They could have brought in a Mr. and a Mrs. Freeze with Nora by his side. That would have been a really cool idea because she was very pretty. He's very protective of her. They could have tried to do something like that, but instead they gave us this monstrosity. When you compare it to the Arkhamverse women of the past, it's just, there's no comparison. There is no competition here. They look so amazing. Mrs. Freeze looks like a nightmare, and I do not see at this point a way that Rocksteady could bring people back or even get people who do not own the game to purchase it. It will be interesting to see if all of the other DLC characters they plan to launch will actually come out, or if they will drop this game because of the monetary loss. Only time will tell, but right now we can see Mrs. Freeze is a complete and utter disaster, just like all of the other characters in Suicide Squad. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.